You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch Radio.
And good evening, everybody. Yes, it's yours truly, Penny G. Morgan, coming to you very live and hopefully reasonably loud, but not too loud, all the way from Essex in the UK, back from my 4 days away in Cornwall, investigating the somewhat amazingly, eerily erratic, I think are the words I'd use, Bodmin Jail. Now, I was doing this not for, I will be doing a show again on Bodmin Jail in a couple of months' time, but I was actually asked along to be a guest investigator with our good friend Mr. Richard Eastep, and I got to meet quite a few other people who he knows and who has been mentioned and who have even appeared in other books of his. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of that one, what's mentioned in the book, and the experiences that we had. So I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to spoil it, but after the book comes out, if anyone wants to talk to me about it, they're more than welcome. Oh, and I am writing the foreword to that book as well, although as Kerry said to me, Kerry Greenaway, the boss, said to me the other day, well, it's not actually a book you've written, so why would we tell anyone about it? Yeah, I've set my standards too high now, haven't I? Most people would just be chuffed to be writing a foreword. Now I've got to write a whole book, but hey-ho. And talking of books, if you haven't had a chance to buy mine or get hold of a copy yet, head on over to the Parasearch group page and there's a competition to win a signed copy. Now, unusually for our competitions, we have actually opened this one up to anyone, anywhere in the world. However, as you can probably imagine, there is a wee caveat on that, in that if you are out of the UK, you do have to cover your own postage and packing if you win the book, but you still get a chance to win a signed copy of my book, My Haunted History. So please head on over there, give the post a like, maybe put a little comment and give a little share if you're feeling benevolent and want to give other people the chance to enter as well. The more, the merrier, as I say. And don't fret, if you don't get a chance to buy it, win it from there, you can still buy it on Amazon if you really want a copy. And there you go, it's a chance to win the book. So where am I this weekend? Well, this weekend... Sorry, I've just looked in the chat room and we've got Wing Commander Guy Gibson in the chat room. Wow, I'm honoured. Hello, sir. How are you? Are you going to give us the secrets of what actually happened to you? Yes? Wing Commander Gibson, thank you for joining us. Very flattered. I do know who that is before anyone knows, and unfortunately I don't think it is the real Guy Gibson, because that would be something pretty amazing. But I'm still chuffed. He's put a very nice photo of Guy up there as well, so I've got something to look at now. Anyway, as I say, it's been a busy month. The last 4 weeks have been quite busy, because not only did I just spend 4 days down in Cornwall, and the nut job that I am, I did drive the whole way back from Bodmin to Essex in one go yesterday, and I'm still paying for it. A couple of weeks ago, I got to investigate somewhere with some very, very good friends of mine, and I'm actually investigating with said good friends again this weekend. And said good friends are on the other end of the phone tonight as well. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello. How are you both?
Very good, thanks. Very good.
Well, if anyone doesn't realise who said good friends are, and they haven't read what's been said about tonight's show. It's Kerry and Steve from Fright Nights Essex and London. I'm not going to say Fright Nights Essex and Fright Nights London. You're just Fright Nights Essex and London.
Yeah.
Now. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Cool. Well, this weekend we're actually heading off to Harwich Redoubt to do an investigation there. It should be quite an exciting one. I'm quite looking forward to it. Have you got any sort of anything exciting planned for the guests?
Yes, I'm going to try a couple of experiments out there. We've got a couple of old tech ideas and a couple of new versions or new vision of how to do an investigation. So we're going to try them out.
You can't drop any hints of maybe to one of the old tech ideas?
One of the old tech ideas is nice and simple. It's a hotel bell.
Right. Oh, a bit like that you used at the Kursaal.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
We're going to put it in one of the rooms, and we can see if we can get some ringing to come back. It's very lightweight. It's very light to touch to ring.
Yeah.
We haven't had it ring yet, but we're hoping that every investigation they start to learn that this can be an easily operated bit of kit.
Yeah.
Like the K2s and the REM pod.
Right.
So fingers crossed we'll start getting a bit of activity through it. So
Okay, interesting. So we got Harwich this weekend.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking shortly about the Kursaal, which we investigated. Is it 3 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
About 3 weeks ago, isn't it? God, time flies. Where else have you been just recently?
We did Valence House 2 weekends ago. So another active evening there. We have it's an amazing place, Valence, and all sort of EVP and Spirit Box tends to be the way to go there. We had a lot of action on both and lots of hours and hours of recordings to go through. But it's it's turning into one of our sort of interesting sort of ones to watch, because we've been there 3 times, and each time it's been EVP. It's all about the recordings, and we get all our guests to, we can't stress enough how much we want them to take part and do their own recordings, and it's probably the most relevant place for that.
Stronger.
Much stronger, and we're getting sort of the same accents come through, because we had like a Scottish accent, and he often swears when he comes through on EVP. So we've had that sort of at two of the events now. So it's really interesting. Sort of hoping to build a bit of a timeline and a bit more sort of information about these people who are coming through to us.
So you've had repeat sort of visits from specific spirits then, have you?
Yes. Sort of not. I mean, some of them have come through to Steve. Sort of we're getting the same names and same sort of appearance of people who aren't necessarily sort of. I mean, we thought they weren't resident to the Valence House, but seem to sort of come there quite a bit. So 2 events now we've had quite strong activity from both. So it's it's getting interesting. It's not so easy on the voices to get the names come through, but we are getting responses to questions, and they are explaining themselves a little better. So we're spending a bit more time trying to understand the recordings that that we have and voices that come through. So that's a good thing about going back to somewhere where the activity is good, and sort of having that sort of moving forward, really. So that's what we like about it. It's lovely going to new places like the Kursaal, but equally going back to what's becoming a bit of an old favourite now, Valence Will. We're loving it, and hopefully going to build a little bit more information up behind it. So it's exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, can we all say hello to the boss? She's in the chat room.
Hello.
Yes, boss. There you go. Got the guest saying hello to you as well, just to prove I am actually live. Because me going live doesn't actually happen very often, but it seems about the last 4 weeks I've done every single show live. And I think they're now expecting me to do all of my shows live. And it ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen, unfortunately. But, you know, it's quite good fun to do them every so often. And you guys did help me out saying we could go live tonight because of the fact I didn't get back till about 6:30. Yeah, she's laughing, going, yay, live. I did get back quite late last night, and honestly, I was asleep by, about 8:30 last night. So it would have been a struggle to record one. But, so you guys have got a really busy agenda coming up. But April is the busiest of them all, isn't it? And you're going to tell us why April is the busiest of them all.
Yes, we're getting married in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, I'm getting married. I'm going to be there. I'm so excited to see my friends get married. And I've managed to get rid of the kids for the night as well, which is even better.
Yes, so it's a bit hectic at the moment, but
yes, a whimsy bit, yeah.
It always is, no matter how well prepared I think you are when you're arranging a big event like that. It gets hectic no matter what, especially with you, Kerry, deciding to break yourself.
Yeah, that wasn't the finest moment.
That wasn't. Kerry and Steve went to Paris for a big birthday.
Yes.
And you went with Sarah and Brendan as well. I think called him Brandon. And Brendan as well. And Kerry decided to break her bloody ankle. But then decided to ignore the fact she'd broken said ankle and keep walking round on it. For 3 days?
5.
5 days. Have you got the boot off yet? Is the boot off?
No, the boot is still on, but...
Oh, no.
I'm still doing hydrotherapy and fingers crossed that it will be off in the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
So, yes.
Well, are you wearing a long dress for the wedding?
Yes,
so if all else fails, that covers it?
Yes. Yeah, worst comes to worst, it will cover it. And Sophie can decorate it, so I suppose there's that.
Well, actually, Guy Gibson's just offered to fly me to the wedding. Guy, you know how to sweet talk a girl. I tell you. Do you guys know about my thing for Guy Gibson?
No.
You didn't know about my thing for Guy Gibson. Do you know who Guy Gibson was?
No, the name rings a bell.
Have you heard of the Dam Busters?
Yes.
Yes, he was the commander of the Dam Busters.
Okay.
And he was only like 26 or 27, I think, at the time. He flew something in the region of about 120, 130 sorties with Bomber Command before he was killed. Pretty amazing man, and I've got a very strange crush on Guy Gibson. Apart from that, he was an amazing pilot, but also he's quite good looking. So, this is the standing joke that I have a crush on. But then again, I'm the military magnet, so...
I was going to say, you with men in uniforms, I mean, I'm not really surprised.
Yeah, but they like me as much as I like them. Don't make it sound like it's all one-sided, Trina.
Oh, no, I've seen it's not one-sided. No, I've seen that. That's fine.
That's why I'm waiting to see what happens at Harwich on Saturday.
Yes.
Well, hey.
Yeah, bring it on. Yeah.
I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get one of the naughty ones that was put in sort of in the holding cells there in the 1940s during World War II. They're going to be the ones I'm going to get. I'm not going to get like some handsome officer or something. I'm going to get some drunken Caledonian or something. I don't know. Anyway, we're not talking about Harwich. But yes, April, we've got a paranormal wedding coming up, which is very exciting. Very exciting. Although I'm sure it's more exciting for those guys. Oh my God, Guy Gibson's going. I think he's on one tonight. And like I said, I do know who's behind him. He's now just said there's only one caveat. I've got to let him park his Lancaster in my hangar. Guy, the Lanc might be a bit big for around here. You might want to bring the Mosquito instead, because that's a little bit smaller.
I don't know, at the wedding reception it'd be fine.
You reckon? Will there be room?
That'll be fine now.
Oh my God, the amount of double entendres that are going on in this room tonight. Oh my. I can tell Gemma's not in there yet. She would have been joining in. In fact, Kerry Greenaway's being very quiet. Normally she'd have come out with some comment. I reckon she's not actually paying attention to the chat room. She's listening but not paying attention at the moment. Anyway, so the Kursaal.
Yes.
Now, this place has never really been investigated before, has it?
No. As far as I'm
What
aware.
made you choose it?
When we first took on Essex back sort of summer last year, we were looking locally, obviously being local ourselves, and I mean the Kursaal was just top of the list really of places that's so iconic and so well known sort of locally, and just made it's sort of beyond here and through its history and in the past it just seemed the right sort of place to approach and just see what happens. And thankfully they were really sort of up for it and happy to get on board, so really chuffed with it.
Because I mean the Kursaal, when you mention to anyone who's got a background from Essex, I mean obviously you don't tend to meet many people who are still around who predate, sort of sounds a horrible way to put it, but predate about 1945, 1950 now. But you mentioned the Kursaal and they went, oh, bloody hell, not the one in Southend. I mean, that's what most people will say when you mention it to them. And they've all got slightly different memories of what the Kursaal was. Yes. I mean, anyone who can remember it from, say, the 1960s will remember the Wall of Death, the motorbike thing which I believe, if my memory serves me correct, had the first ever female Wall of Death rider. She's pretty iconic. I think she was in the late 40s, early 50s, if I remember rightly. But she was there, and it had all the different amusements. It was kind of like the Pleasure Beach before the Pleasure Beach was there. Yeah. And then in the 1960s, it did start to sort of go downhill as package holidays took off. And then you got the next group of people who remember it from the 1970s as a gig venue, which we'll come to, because that was one of the most cracking bits of the night. For me personally, and then you've got when it sort of just literally turned into almost what we have now. Now, I do want to caveat this with anyone who knows the area might be going, well, I don't know what you're talking about. It's shut. Have you got an update on that one?
Yes, it has reopened. It was sort of a change of management. Unfortunately, just literally a day or so after we were in there, they were only closed for a couple of days and sort of reopened, and so now back up and running, and sort of all parties that were sort of held there before are still being held, and it is sort of back to normal really, and they're just going to be pushing forward with sort of marketing, and we're having good chats with them about sort of the next event that we're going to do there, and they're really keen for us to sort of go back and do a couple of events this year. So and we're delighted to be doing that with them. So it's like that. They've been very proactive in their approach to wanting the Kursaal to stay open and do well.
Well, it's, as you were saying, it's such an iconic part of the coast, the sort of seafront, isn't it? Yeah. That sort of that glass dome. I mean, you recognise that before you realise what it is, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, and it's plus that building is listed anyway, so they've got to do something with it, even if it's not necessarily an amusement park. But looking, just doing my history bit, my history bit. Yeah. The bit that I do, and that I'm kind of getting people sort of go, oh, she's doing the history bit. I will try and keep this interesting. Okay, so the Kursaal itself opened in July 1901. And it covered an area of 26 acres. It was huge. But that wasn't its first sort of incarnation, if you like, as an amusement park. Because before then, from about 1873, it was known as Marine Park. And that, even though that only covered 4 acres, it was still a pretty large amusement area for Southend back in the day when Southend was people's holiday. They would do the day trips from East London, and before we had the sort of mandatory 20 odd days holiday a year and everyone flew away for 2 weeks abroad and all that kind of thing. So it was part of the whole seaside resort health thing, enjoying yourselves, all that kind of mentality. But when it opened in 1901, it was actually known as the Kursaal, and it was meant to actually rival the Blackpool Winter Gardens, which had opened about 20 years earlier, and it did. In all honesty, it was incredibly well frequented. It changed hands in 1910 and became Luna Park for a while, and one of the ones that I find the funniest Oh, by the way, Guy Gibson's slagging off Southend right now. If you're not looking in the chat room, he just said he accidentally bombed Southend on a training mission one night, and said that a lot of people thought it was an improvement.
Oh.
Do you want to come back at him with that one?
Needs to come and see it again.
He does, doesn't he? He does. I think so. There you go, Guy. There's an open invitation for you. Come back to Southend. It's not as bad as you think. Anyway, so in June of 1911, there was quite a big fire there. Amazingly, no one was hurt. But the story that I think I told when we were there that night that I found quite funny was that because people were trying to loot, like the ticket offices and the box office, to get money out of them, the fire brigade turned their hoses on them. Rather than fighting the fire, they turned their hoses on the looters, which I find quite. It still makes me chuckle when I think about it. In 1916, it had changed ownership again. Now, the changing of ownership at the Kursaal is something that happened a lot over the 120 years that it's been open. And it's still happening now, then,
yes,
isn't it? It's not. Yeah. It doesn't seem to be able to maintain an owner for more than 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Max. It's interesting, isn't it? It does seem to almost. I wouldn't say cursed. I think that's too strong a word, but it does definitely seem to struggle to maintain its ownership. But one of the biggest things that it did was in 1916, when this new chap took over, who was an American and had lots of money, he installed a zoo there, among other things. So this place had bowling alleys, it had amusement arcade, it had fairground attractions. Bear in mind, 26 acres, fairground attractions. It had obviously restaurant. It had a dance floor that had something in the region of 8,000 carriage springs, made it one of the most expensive dance floors I think in the UK to have been installed. And it had this zoo. And obviously Southend had a lot of military involvement because you had all the barracks, didn't you? And I can't even think where they are now. Mine's just gone.
The garrison.
Thank you. Yes, you knew what I meant. And so you had an awful lot of military personnel coming in and out, even before World War One, and a lot of them would actually end up staying at the Kursaal. They would be bedded down at the Kursaal when there wasn't enough room, when there was visiting sort of regiments coming into the garrison to do practice artillery work and everything else. Now, one of the big stories that's told about the Kursaal was the fact that there was a gun range there, and this young lad, I'll say young lad, back then, by 18 probably wouldn't have been seen as being a young lad, but he was a sailor who had been injured, and he was being rehabilitated, and he went to the Kursaal to I suppose play on the gun range with some of his sailor friends, and he was shot in the head by accident in June of 1917, a lad by the name of Albert Lawty. Now, a lot of people who've been there at night, overnight, like security guards and everything else, have heard a sound of gunshots going off in the building. Now, when I've mentioned this to other people, they're like, well, it is Southend. I mean, it is Southend. But it's one of those things that I've heard it from a lot of different sources who aren't necessarily related to each other about the gunshot sound. And Albert died there and then. His friend who accidentally shot him was found to be not guilty because he cocked his gun just as Albert walked in front of him with no warning whatsoever. And everyone knows when you've got guns out, you don't walk in front, you go behind. Whether, who knows, maybe Albert was trying to kill himself. I don't know. But he was shot. Now, so that's just the first sort of 15-16 years worth of history of the place. There's been quite a lot of deaths there. There's been a lot of deaths very nearby. There's been a lot of very nasty accidents as well on the fairground equipment and all that kind of thing. So one would think there could be quite a lot of energy there. Not to mention the people who had fun there and wanted to come back. Now, the way you guys organise your investigations, you tend to split people off into 3 groups, and one group does a lot of, like I'd call sort of mediumistic type work. Another group does tech work, as I'd call it, and another group does almost like spiritual type work. Would that be a good way of...
Yeah, that's correct.
Analogy, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's go on to the mediumistic side first. So, Steve, you're up.
Yes.
Now, we were in the laser grid room, weren't we? For the mediumistic stuff.
Yes.
Now, you talk first, and I'll add bits in from what I remember from the session I did in there.
Well, I've been on many investigations and done many investigations. I've never actually done a laser tag area, but didn't disappoint. Very interesting. One, we've already got a dark room, which is always handy, and there's no light coming in because they want to make sure that no external lights are going to come in and destroy the game of play, which is brilliant. So obviously going into a dark room already set up for us is fantastic. But it was interesting when we were doing a walk around to make sure of all the safety, which we do on every event. And they said, "Did you want to do that area?" And I said, "Of course, we'll have a look. It's not every day you get to do laser tag."
This was a couple of weeks before.
Yeah. And it was very, very interesting walking around there. And he said, "Oh, we've got lights on, off, whatever." And it is a maze. And
it is.
A lot of people think whenever they see that, "Oh no, it's fine. Once it's lit, it's fine." It's not. It's still a maze. You do get lost in these things. So when we're doing an investigation, we have to ensure that everybody's going to be nice and secure and safe. But saying that, when we start an investigation, we don't expect to hear noises from another part of it, even though the doors are locked. On, I think, all three groups, we had the doors locked, so no people could come in. It's downstairs.
Yeah.
So we don't want people coming in just randomly walking in. So to hear noises, shuffles, and even voices from a different part of the zone, it was really interesting on the spiritual side as well as a physical side for the guests who may not be spiritually aware. So we tried a couple of experiments with the bells and stuff like that. One of the groups we did hear a slight bell sound, but can't say it was definitely a bell. When I was in there, on all three groups we had the same three spirits. We seemed to have a young girl, a man, and a lady. The man's the oldest of the three. They seem to be quite interested in communicating. As soon as we got there, they seemed to be there following us and trying to find out a bit more information about us and what we were going to do and why we were there and why the lights were all turned off.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting investigation, and I can't wait to do that again. Yes, it was one of those investigations that it's definitely one you put on your diary and say, "Yeah, I haven't done that before." Yeah, tick.
Well, what I found weird about, I mean, it is a maze. Yeah, it is most definitely a maze, but it made you feel quite sick and disorientated because of the way that it's dark. But then you've got the fluorescent strips on some of the partitions. It made me feel quite kind of unsettled, sick, not spookily sick, but it was just a bit like, ugh, I'm not sure about this, because it kind of threw off your equilibrium. But I know that at the group that I was with you, and I think I mentioned this to you, I did listen back to the recordings I was doing, and I've picked up a woman going twice on the recordings. And one of them I heard with my own ears, and I thought it was Sophie had said something, and you hear her quite clearly on the call saying, "No, it wasn't me." And I've played it back, and I definitely heard a woman go right next to the recorder. And then later on in that set, we all said, "Did you hear that?" And again, it's the same voice going and and I got that twice on the recorder. The other thing, I think, if you remember, we thought we heard footsteps, didn't we? And we thought, oh, that's going to be outside because we're right next to a fire escape. Yeah. But you said you didn't hear that on the other two groups.
the other two groups, we didn't have that at all. But when we, I went back down there doing our safety walks that night, just to ensure there wasn't any trip hazards and stuff. And we walked round the whole thing with one of the guides that was showing us round, and the temperature just dropped. And even he said, it's weird, the temperature dropped. And then we heard almost like a bang in the furthest from us. So we went and investigated it, and the fire doors were open. There was nobody in there, and all the front doors were locked. So we locked the doors and thought nothing of it. But we didn't have that again, which was a shame. But it was interesting because we know for a fact that it was locked. And even he said it's protocols, fire exits shouldn't be opened at all. They're normally alarmed, so they should have gone off. So it was a bit of a question mark on if it was paranormal or if it was just somebody being silly and just opening the door. But it did coincide. When we walked round there, we didn't notice it, but when we heard the bang from that area, we went back and they were open, and they were open quite a bit.
And no one had been seen going in the room?
No, not at all. There was only, I think, 3 of us, and they were all together, and he got the door behind us to stop people from coming in.
And there's only one way in and one way out, unless you use the fire escape to get in or out of there. So
was interesting. Unfortunately, it didn't happen again on either of the groups, but it was an interesting note. So I pray that it happens again whilst with an investigation. But as is most investigations, you can never tell what they're going to do.
No.
Just pray that it's right in front of a camera with all the recorders going, and you've got about 30 eyewitnesses. Yeah,
you'll be lucky. That only seems to happen on certain television shows. It doesn't seem to happen in real life very often. I must admit that the group that I was with, the main thing I heard those two noises that came through on the recorder, and that weird shadow that I saw on the wall that I couldn't work out what was throwing it, because there was you've got black walls, yet I could see a shadow that was slightly illuminated, and there was no lights to throw it, and the height of it was childlike.
Well, the funny thing is, you saying that, the third group thought they heard shuffling, and one of the ladies had a bit of a fright. She jumped out of her skin and said, "Did you see that guy standing in the doorway?" And we all looked, and there was no man standing in the doorway, but I know there is a male energy there. So it was quite interesting, because I hadn't even got to that point to explain to that group what spirits were in there, and she shouted, "Oh, there's a man standing over there," and tried to describe him, but he was almost like his face was slightly lit, but you couldn't really tell the details. But the interesting thing was where he was standing, you couldn't see the door. So if it was lit, then he had a torch or some sort of light to light him up. We did investigate. There was no other people in there, and the doors were locked. So always interesting. Nice little bit of personal activity for someone. So to take home and go, was it? Wasn't it? It's always nice. So
definitely.
There was shuffles and there were noises in there. As you say, there was definitely a voice, a lady's voice, a child's voice, and definitely a male's presence in that whole area. Obviously, I don't do any history, so it'd be interesting if that actually responds to some of the history of hauntings that have been there or documented.
I've not read of any hauntings that could relate to it, but families and children, and of course it was an amusement arcade. You would have had that kind of thing there anyway. I mean, you don't really need to sort of double check those unless we got a name or something along those lines. And And the era of the description of the sort of clothes I think that you were giving us as a medium would have fit with the era that it was around. So who knows? Well, onto the equipment side. For the equipment side, we were in a part known as the Void.
That's right.
Now,
first of all.
Yeah, I'm going to describe this as looking like an underground car park.
Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate. Yeah,
that's actually is what it looks like. It's this completely unused area that's huge, and looks like an underground car park. But a lot of staff won't go in it because it scares them. I personally didn't find it scary at all.
No, I quite liked the atmosphere in there personally. It was nice in there.
I thought so too. I didn't find it, intimidating or like nasty or malevolent or anything like that. I found it was just a typical big dark space. Yeah.
I think one member of staff that we had with us, she wasn't so keen on the doorways. So there was a couple of doorways inside the room that we didn't enter sort of via, and she didn't feel comfortable sort of by those doorways. But I mean, that's the only thing. I mean, the rest of the group were quite happy in there. In all fairness, we did have some good activity in there though, which was pleasing. We did. And it was scattered. Sometimes you can go to a sort of a venue and you have a room, because normally I do the tech, so you tend to sort of stay in that room for the 3 groups. Yeah. And sometimes you get the activity in the same spot. And sometimes, you can get one group have something and one group had nothing. But all 3 groups had something, but it moved. So, so that was quite interesting. I mean, I know your group, when we were in there, we had the K2, the REM pod.
The main things we had going were the flashing cat ball.
Yes,
and
that's right.
the spirit box. Those were the 2 things that we were getting an awful lot from. With the ball. If I remember rightly, we were standing on one side of it, and everyone else was off investigating. And we'd put the ball on one end of the room, and the REM pod the other end. And I think it was Brendan and someone else were nearest to the ball, but they weren't near it, but they were the nearest. They were probably a good couple of meters away from it, weren't they? And it just suddenly started flashing. Yes. And so, the investigators, I can say this to anyone listening, the investigators in us said, right, okay, stop it flashing, jump near it, blow on it, move around it, see if you can get it to flash again. And it didn't, until Brendan sort of stood there and went, can you make it do that again? Bang, off it went. And it was doing this on command for like a good 10-15 minutes, wasn't it? That we could get it to flash on command.
That's right. In answer to questions, it was fantastic. Like I say, each group had different sort of activity. I think the cat ball went off a little bit for another group, and one group didn't get anything on the cat ball at all. Right. I mean, each time I did ask the group to pick where they put the cat ball, and I, because I don't want to lead anybody into, sort of expecting anything, so I let them put it down where they want to put it. But we did have a bit of REM pod activity on one group, but not on others. And it's quite nice when you get a sort of variation. And like you say, we always like to test around the area to make sure we're not setting it sort of unwittingly off. Especially something like a cat ball, because you never can sort of tell. You sort of think, oh, it's going off. Let's just make sure that we haven't sort of done that by the movement. And I mean, we've had that in the Bell pub going off on a floorboard, and you thought, okay, maybe we're standing too close to it, and you're jumping up and down the floorboard. But in the Kursaal, I mean, that's a concrete floor, so sort of jumping would have no bearing on it at all.
I still got them to do it, though.
Yes, it's definitely worth doing, because you never know.
It was quite amazing how they were following. Can you jump? Can you blow on it? Can you run past it? And they're doing everything I was asking them to do. It was fab.
But yeah, I had really good sort of activity in there. We had a little bit of sort of voices on the K2 box, on the spirit box.
Yeah, we did.
And K2 activity in there as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think every group up, we were lucky enough to have sort of activity in there.
And the footsteps above our heads.
Yes, I mean,
have we got to the bottom of if there is anything up there yet?
We haven't been confirmed, because we were told by the staff there wasn't. But I think at the back part there is the casino, so I do feel there is a chance that there was something above, which is where the footsteps came from. Right. However, I know in one group we actually had footsteps in the room in a corner where there was nothing.
Yeah.
So I know that part. I'm like, okay, we can hear that walking sort of towards us. I can't answer that, but the ones above, I believe that there is space for somebody possibly to be walking up there. So we've discounted that.
Right. Okay. At the moment.
Yes.
At the
moment.
But it was right. We weren't right at the back though when it was happening.
No.
We were in the middle.
No. Yeah. It's like I say. I think we almost need to get up there and have a little look and see.
I think so. Yeah.
Because obviously it was like high heel shoes.
It was like a woman's high heels, yeah.
Yeah.
But there was we didn't hear any others. The reason I'm saying that was if it had been sound from the casino, we'd have heard different footsteps.
Yeah. And other groups, we didn't hear that at all.
Exactly. If that was the casino and it was open, we'd have heard lots of different footsteps.
Yeah, yeah.
And we didn't. We just heard that one set.
I think because there's a possibility someone could be walking up there, it was just, we're not going to sort of take it as definite sort of paranormal sort of activity. But in the room, it's pretty, obviously, it's hard to, when you're flashing a torch in a corner and you can hear footsteps and there's nothing there. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting area to investigate. And
it was, but really, I did not find it
malevolent
or anything at all.
No. Absolutely fine. I was in there at one point on my own, and it was quite comfortable. So.
And just based on some of the history that I've mentioned, and I know the name itself would have been quite popular in its day. What was the name that we had come through on the spirit box twice?
Oh, what was the name?
Can you remember?
No.
It was Albert.
Albert. Oh, you were saying about Albert earlier.
Albert was the name of the soldier who shot him.
Yeah.
Shot there.
Oh, okay, yeah, because that was on the first floor, so, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, and again, I know it's a popular name,
yes,
or it would have been, but, and I wasn't the only one who heard it, quite a few people, I thought he said Albie first.
That's right.
And then he said it again, he said Albert, and I wasn't the only one that heard it, quite a few people turned around and said Albert.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've got a recording of it as well, so.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, it's, very interesting.
Definitely. Well, I know with the spiritual work we do that with Sarah, who's soon to be your sister-in-law and is Steve's sister. That's using a sort of spirit board type situation, and I know that was quite active, and we had a specific spirit kept coming through, and apparently this one came through on three of the. I think all three groups. This one spirit came through and was pretending to be anything but what she was. And didn't like me because I sussed out that it was because she had a mental health problem and she'd been sent away, and that she used to come there as a kid. And that's why she was coming back, because she'd had fun there. So I know we had that. We did have quite a few personal ones coming through, which is unusual to have that many coming through. Yeah, I was going to say we do get some obviously through on the glass divination and table tipping, but this was predominantly nearly all.
It was particularly active that evening.
I know we had a soldier, funnily enough, come through, and with the links to the military that the place and Southend in general has got, that didn't surprise me. But I know that one, he started affecting my shoulder, and I wasn't actually on the board. I tend to sit off it in those kind of larger group events, so I can observe rather than being accused of affecting it. And I sussed out that he'd fallen off a horse. He'd had a bad fall and damaged his shoulder, because my shoulder just started throbbing just as he came through. So that was quite interesting. But the best part of the evening for me, I have to say this, the best part of the evening for me was when we went down, when the place shut at 1 and we got to go down into the bowling alley, which is where the original gig venue would have been in the 1970s. And we had this confirmed, didn't we? Because one of the ladies on there had come to see bands there when she was 15, 16
Yes,
in the 1970s.
That's right, yeah.
And so she was telling us what the layout had been and everything else. Now, this was a little experiment that I persuaded the guys to let me run. I was obviously incredibly excited because of what happened, but do you want to sort of explain what we were doing? So, because I'll go all silly and everyone will... it was a little sort of unusual for us. Normally we'd go through and see what Steve picks up on and then follow it up
obviously see if, if any sort of tech has any results, table tipping and so on. Penny asked us if we would consider playing some music that was once played there. So we said, yeah, let's give it a go. We've got nothing to lose. I think a few people who've been on our events before were quite surprised. It was quite unusual. But as soon as we sort of started playing the music, the activity levels just went through the roof on every aspect.
Just a tad.
From the K2 meters to I think we had the cat ball light up as well.
Cat ball was lighting up.
We had the table and the glass divination table tipping was going mad.
Rocking backwards.
That was actually lifting off the floor at one point.
Yeah, that was amazing. And we had Linda and Mark from Fright Nights head office there, and they had their SLS camera, and that was really interesting. I'm a bit sceptical of a kit like that, that I can't see, sort of how it's interpreting that there's a spirit sitting in a chair, for example. But it actually had in a blank space in front of it two sort of spirits, one sort of leaning, sort of almost tapping his foot to the music while the other one was going crazy. And I was really surprised.
It looked like one was playing air guitar and the other was headbanging.
Yeah,
that's what it looked like.
Surprising. And I'm quite taken back by the results that it had there.
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird.
It went a bit crazy. It felt crazy, actually. Yeah. It felt a bit frantic, I suppose.
It did. It felt like I was at a gig. It genuinely felt like I was at a really rocking gig.
Yeah, and it wasn't just music. It was the whole energy of the place was alive. It effectively did come alive. And we've never had anything like that at any other venue, sort of to that level. It was amazing. Yeah, it was fantastic.
I know that when the first song I put on, Nothing Started Really Happening, then I changed it to, I think it was Whole Lot of Rosie by AC/DC, and I actually sung the opening lines because I love that song, and I hit the note, and one of the ladies who was on it, she turned around, she went, "Wow, spirits, if that doesn't get something, nothing should." And all the K2s that we had lined up went straight to red. And then it was, we were getting them to go into red on command, like they were a disco show.
Yeah.
And that was a bit strange, and it was just exciting. I think I was jumping around like a kid. I was just like, I've never seen this happen before to this sort of level. And I don't normally do table tipping. I find it a bit sort of parlour tricky.
Yeah.
But I thought, I'll have a go. This table was lifting up under our fingers. That's the only. And before anyone asked, no, I wasn't stoned. I wasn't drunk. I was kind of, this is strange. Yeah. This is so strange. And they say the table was balancing on one leg at points as well. Yeah. But the weirdest thing about that was somebody turned around and said, "Can you smell burning?" And I said, "That's not burning. That smells like a joint. That smells like hash." And those of us around the table, I think we were the only ones who could smell it.
Yes.
I think Mark was standing quite close, and he said, "I didn't want to say, but that's what I could smell as well." Now I can guarantee none of us were smoking.
No. And you couldn't smell it away from the table either. You couldn't.
Yeah, but we all picked it up by the table. So it was a really, but it was what was then happening on the SLS, or the stickman thingy, as Kerry on here likes to calls it. Actually, I call it the stickman camera anyway. I think it's the perfect description for it. Yeah. And it was looking at that, but the fact that Linda would get, "Don't run through them," and people come through them not realising, and they'd disappear. But within 2 or 3 seconds, they were back again.
That's right. Yeah.
And when you turn the camera off to see what it was mapping, there was nothing it could be mapping in. Nobody was dancing. There was nobody standing in front of the camera where these figures were coming up.
No.
Everyone was behind. The other argument I sort of had, and I have actually written about this in my new book, but the next book that I'm writing at the moment, but the argument I had was that they were doing stereotypical rock poses.
Yeah, they were, yeah.
So unless the camera had some kind of intelligent chip in it that was like, they're playing rock music, therefore this is what they'd expect to see, how?
Completely flummoxed me, because like I say, the few times I've seen the SLS camera in action, I've been a bit sceptical. Like I say, there's a seat and there's somebody sitting on a seat, and it's like, well, that's convenient, isn't it? You know, I'm a bit sceptical of it. And like you say, how is it possible to know that they would be moving so vigorously in that sort of position? And like you say, there was just an empty space in front of that. So.
But it did look like one, and I've shown it to a few people, and I said, what does it look like they're doing, without giving them the backstory? And they went, it looks like one's headbanging and one's playing air guitar. And I was like, it's funny you should say that. I mean, that's exactly what people would have done to that kind of music.
Yeah, that's right.
Still do.
Yeah.
So it blew me away that was the thing that was most active.
Yes.
That just seemed to get them all to come out, and I wouldn't have said it was residual either. I would have said it was interactive. Yes,
very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. It was just, and I say it wasn't just that the activity, it was the feeling, and it was like a euphoric feeling in there. It was really very unusual.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, very unique.
Yes.
What kind of feedback did you get from some of the sort of the guests who were there who experienced it?
Yeah, very good actually. I mean, we had a few people who'd been on our events before, so obviously it was a little sort of unorthodox compared to what they're used to. But by and large, I mean, you know, a lot of people were experiencing those things like on the table, or they were looking at the K2s, or the SLS camera. So, and we did have a spirit box further down at the end of the bowling alley, which was also giving good results as well.
Right.
So yeah, it was just like it was just a bit frantic that everybody was it was so busy sort of thing with activity. But yeah, I think everyone really loved it, and it's been given really good feedback. I mean, we did have a waiting list of people sort of obviously for the Kursaal. We sold out sort of pretty quick. So you know, I think going back there again, it's only sort of natural to try and sort of see if we get the same sort of results.
Yeah.
You know, whether there was any sort of anniversaries. I know obviously you mentioned about the I think a couple of days before the event there was an anniversary.
Well, it was the anniversary of the death of Bon Scott from AC/DC, and AC/DC do have a very strong link to the place, because their album Let There Be Rock, the front cover, was shot on stage when they were on stage at the Kursaal. So they do have quite strong links to the place. But it was I think, if I remember rightly, even though a whole lot of Rosie got everyone dancing, it was Thin Lizzy that kept them dancing. Yes. Because I changed the music, because I could see the atmosphere was dropping slightly, so I changed the music to Thin Lizzy, and I think I put Boys Are Back in Town on or something like that. Yeah. And it just went mad again.
Yeah. No, it was it was phenomenal. It was very well received. I think, you know, people felt quite privileged to be able to sort of investigate the building, and it's so pretty inside, and you've got the sort of stained glass ceiling.
The dome, yeah. The dome is pretty amazing.
Yeah. No, so it's you know, very, very good, very pleased.
So with it reopening, are you hoping to get back?
Yes, we're in talks with them at the moment to do another 2 events this year.
Okay.
And the next one will be in June. So we're just finalising a couple of dates.
That's right. Yeah.
And hopefully in the next sort of day or so we'll be able to release that date. It'll be quite exciting actually. We can't wait to get back there. Yeah. And like I say, you know, the staff who came along that night at the Kursaal were fantastic and very accommodating. So I know that, you know, the Kursaal's sort of team are sort of excited as well. So it's going to be brilliant.
Good. So where else have you got coming up between now and the middle of April?
We're only doing the Redoubt Fault. That's the last one before our wedding. So
what?
So yes,
I thought you were professionals.
Got too much going on. But then in May we've got back to Fort Halstead, which we love. So we like our forts, and then Avenue House, which we haven't been to for a couple of years. So we're back there at the sort of, I think, 18th of May. So
looking forward to that.
That's sold pretty well. So we can't wait for that one. That's again quite an active place. Sort of thing. The last couple of times we were there back in 2017. Were very good. So looking forward to going back there and seeing what that's got to offer.
Cool. So have you got any new locations you can tell us about yet?
We're in discussion with 2 for London. at the moment. Hopefully for later on in the year, but things are a little slow there. One of them we've been in discussion with for about the last 8 months, so it's taken its time. But hopefully we'll have some dates for later on in the year, and then we've got one for Essex, which Mark and Linda did for head office. They did for Halloween as sort of tester, sort of to see what the venue was like. And we went and sort of paid a visit on Sunday, so we're hoping to come up with a date with them very soon. But that'd probably be, I'd have thought, September onwards.
Okay.
But that'd be a shorter event, sort of not the 6 hours, but maybe sort of 3 or 4 hours.
Right.
So, we're looking forward to that. And that one's got a graveyard with it. So
it's got a bit of a towards it as well.
It's got a bit of a what towards it, Steve?
A bit of a spooky walk. We'll be able to access the graveyard, so we'll probably do
a psychic walk around
the graveyard.
Right.
See what will happen.
There's, by all accounts, there was some serious growls which frightened a few people when they did the Halloween event there.
So have you got a Halloween event sort of planned for this year?
Not at the moment. We've got a couple in the pipeline. So fingers crossed one of them will be on actual Halloween. But whether we'll be in London or Essex at the moment is a bit of a question mark. We don't know yet.
Do Essex, then it's a shorter commute home.
Yeah, it's very tempting.
Especially if it's midweek. We do
have London locations too.
Yeah, we do. So. Yeah.
I know you do. But when it's midweek, you do want a shorter commute home. I think.
It would be nice.
not like my 5.5 hours I did yesterday to get back from Cornwall.
Yeah. I couldn't do that.
I wouldn't be doing it on a regular basis, trust me. As lovely as the people are down there, and you know, I've made some really good friends doing this investigation at Bodmin Jail down there, but oh my gosh, no, once or twice a year max, and then 2 or 3 days to get over it is about. Yeah. Amazing opportunity though. I'm very chuffed to have those kind of opportunities, but it's a long old haul. But then even some parts of London, you know, you've got a sort of 1.5 to 2 hour drive to get to them, and it makes for a very, very long day, doesn't it? It
does, yeah. One of the ones we're sort of in talks with, the one for the last 8 months, is down the other side of London. So it does unfortunately mean that it's quite a sort of a longer sort of journey back, but it will be worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
If we're able to run an event there, it will be worth it.
Sounds good. Well, thank you both so much for being my guests tonight. It's good to talk to you, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks, obviously. Yes. Looking forward to it, really looking forward to it. Although I do have to worry you that Wayne turned round to me, and my husband Wayne turned round to me and said, "Are we doing anything on Saturday, the 13th of April?" I was like, "Are you joking?" And he went, "No, I was wondering if he wants to go out with one of his friends." And I went, "You're not going out." Why? It's the wedding. Whose wedding? Kerry and Steve's wedding. Who's Kerry and Steve? I was like, oh, for God's sake. Oh, Kerry and... Oh, sorry. Is that then? I was like, yeah, dear, you're not going out. You're coming to the wedding. We've got rid of the kids for the weekend. Oh, yeah, cool. Okay. So, yeah. So it might just be me by the looks of it. Never mind. But thanks ever so much for being my wonderful guest tonight. If anyone wants to check out Fright Nights Essex or Fright Nights London, you can find them on Facebook. They're very nice. You can drop them a line and find out all about the different investigations they've got coming up for the rest of this year. Get onto those people. They're very, very good. Next week, I'm going to be talking to Josh Hurd, who owns Malvern Manor. Yes, the infamous Malvern Manor. We're going to be talking to him. So looking forward to that one. But until then, don't forget, if you haven't liked us already on YouTube, go and give us a like, subscribe, and then you'll hear all about the shows. If you want to win a copy of this little old book that I've written and you haven't got a copy already, head on over to the Parasearch Radio group page, give the competition post a like, give it a share if you're feeling generous and want to give other people a chance to win, and put a little comment on to say that you want the book. That would be great. But until then, my lovely people, Parasearch Radio, we have shows on almost every night of the week. Tomorrow night you've got the PSH radio show, so be sure to tune into them. But if you've missed any of them, do head on over to YouTube and Spreaker. You can listen to them back on there as well. But until next week, you lovely lot, have a great evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.